We welcome in the voice of the Royals on our Allo VIP line, Jake Eisenberg, Allo, where they understand the importance of exceptional service with local heart. Jake, how has your All-Star break been, good sir?
It's been good, thanks. Yeah, nice to recharge a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, first time in a while that Kansas City has had 4 All-Stars. How cool was it to watch the mix of veterans in Salvador Perez and Lugo, a veteran but not the Royals, and then the new and Reagans and Bobby Witt represent Kansas City on that stage?
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool just to see 4 different Royals instead of 1 like we've been used to the last couple of years. But, I mean, for me, one of the coolest parts was seeing Salvi catch both Reagans and then Lugo in back-to-back innings. Just the fact that, you've got a 9-time All-Star back there in Salvi, who's catching a couple of first-time All-Stars in Reagans and Lugo, who have both had, different journeys to get to that point, but have both been through their fair share of trials and tribulations and winding paths to get to that point. I think that's just a neat full circle thing. I mean, for Reagans to, be an All-Star for the first time on the mound where he made his big league debut, for Lugo to be an All-Star for the first time after proving to everybody that he can be not just a starter, but an All-Star as a starter. And I mean, that ballpark's as close to his hometown as you're going to get. And I think those guys definitely took away the fact that, they can say they threw to a future Hall of Fame catcher in their first All-Star game. And, for Bobby to make a play behind Cole in that inning, I mean, that was pretty cool too.
The play that Bobby made was awesome. The show he put on the night before. What did that say about Bobby Witt Jr. to the rest of the country?
I mean, I think it said to the rest of the country what you and I and everybody else in this area already knew, that Bobby is a superstar. And we knew that he was a superstar on the field, and I think everybody got a glimpse into what makes him a superstar off the field too. And it's the joy. It's the joy that he plays with. It is the genuine happiness that he has that kind of rubs off on the people around him. I mean, you saw him, giddy as can be when Michael Buffer was announcing his name. I mean, that was awesome to watch him in that moment realize, yeah, wow, this is really cool. And, there you can say a lot about, act like you've been there before. No, you haven't been there before. Like, soak it all in, enjoy it, like, be genuinely in the moment. And I think Bobby not only is capable of that, but did that to a degree that I think struck home with a lot of people watching.
It's pretty cool, too, as a Royals fan to see him, outlast Gunnar Henderson, right? His competition for, starting shortstop in the American League in the game. And then Jose Ramirez as well, division rival. Hopefully that portends good things for the second half as well. But let's talk about the first half here for a little bit. 52 wins for the Royals at the All-Star break after 56 all of last year. In your mind, what are the 1 or 2 biggest reasons for such a dramatic turnaround so quick?
I'll give you 3 reasons. It's starting pitching, and starting pitching. That was the biggest weakness for this team last year when, 3/5 of the rotation ends up being injured by the end of May. And you're kind of forced to go into a depth area where, frankly, you didn't have a ton of depth to begin with. That's going to make it hard to win a lot of ball games, and what we've seen from the Royals starters is the ability to help the Royals win a ball game time in and time out. I mean, the Royals have played 97 games. They have, I want to say, 48 quality starts. That's one shy of half the total games played. They've gotten a quality start. And most of those quality starts haven't been your, minimum 6 innings and 3 runs allowed. They've been 7 innings and 1 run allowed. I mean, Brady Singer has 12 starts where he's allowed 1 run or fewer. That's the most in baseball. Cole Reagans has 14 quality starts. Seth Lugo has 15 quality starts. Michael Wacha and Alec Marsh have been great too. It starts literally with starting pitching. It's a big reason why the Royals are where they are.
You've watched Singer, you've watched Reagans. This is your first look this year at Seth Lugo. What is it about him that makes him so able to, command the 8 or 9 different pitches that he throws?
So I did have the chance to watch Lugo a little bit a couple of years ago when I was doing those Mets games, and he was a reliever in their bullpen. But that was, in some ways a completely different pitcher. And there was a really great piece that Rustin Dodd wrote about Lugo. And then David Larilla, Fangraphs, did a really nice Q&A with Lugo as well, kind of talking about his evolution as a pitcher, going from reliever to starter. And the truth is like they are completely different pitchers. We saw Lugo last year. He started against the Royals and ultimately had to exit that game with a calf injury. But the way that he approaches game planning and the way that he thinks about the singular pitcher-batter matchups that he has, that's ultimately what allows him to do what he's able to do. When you've got 9 different pitches and you know that 3 of those 9 pitches can get a guy out, 1 of those 3 is going to get him out every time. 2 of those 3 are going to set you up for success to get him out and then get him out again later on in the game. I think that's what Lugo's able to do. He is a craftsman, both of, tinkering with pitches and pitch design, but also of the game plan so meticulously that he's 3 or 4 steps ahead of everybody while the game's going on. That's been the most impressive thing about him.
This might be a question that your partner, Denny Matthews, would be slightly better equipped to answer, but you saw Zach Greinke his second go-around in Kansas City. Do you get any Zach Greinke vibes from Seth Lugo this year?
Oh, totally. I would say that the big difference is that Lugo can still throw 95. And that's not, that's no disrespect to Zach Greinke whatsoever. But I think you're seeing in Seth Lugo a version of Zach Greinke that existed at one point. Maybe, Zach Greinke early on in his career, he was a strikeout pitcher. He was a power pitcher. He was coming in there with 95 plus, 97, 98. And then over the years, as his velocity waned, he started becoming a little bit more of a pitcher's pitcher, if you will, kind of gaming the system and outthinking the hitters in the box. And I think we're seeing a combination of those two things with Seth Lugo a little bit, where he's both outthinking the guys in the box, but still can rear back and touch 95 and, climb the ladder and go up in the zone and beat guys with velocity, if and when he needs to.
One other thing on the starting pitching before we move into another aspect of the team, both Cole Ragans and Seth Lugo are getting really close to their career highs in innings pitched. Is there any plan for the Royals to manage those innings, or is it full steam ahead for both of those guys with the Royals in the playoff race?
Now, we've asked Matt Quatrero about that over the course of the season, and they're so in tune with these guys in terms of the communication that they have, day in and day out, start to start, that they don't seem particularly concerned about that. I would say with a pitcher like Lugo, he's had seasons where he's made 65, 70 appearances before, and it might not be the same number of innings, but it's the same. It's more times getting hot and warming up and throwing high pressure pitches in high pressure situations. What the Royals have done a good job this year is getting these guys an extra day of rest when there's an off day and kind of pushing everybody back, shuffling around the rotation when need be to get these guys, where they need to be over the course of the season. Who knows? This is uncharted waters. For some of these guys, like Lugo and Ragans, and heck, even Brady Singer has only thrown 150 innings plus once. Alec Marsh is kind of throwing more than he ever has before. Michael Wacha is on pace to throw a career high in innings. And so with all these guys, there is a little bit of, what's going to happen? At the same time, there's no indication that it would be any issue. And I think the only reason we think that there might be an issue is because that's sort of a narrative that we're led to believe about pitching, that more usage when there hasn't been usage before always leads to a negative outcome. That's more anecdotal than it is quantifiable.
With the bullpen, then, not necessarily a lot of use because of those pitching stats you just mentioned from the starting rotation. James MacArthur was really good in June into July. Sam Long's been a revelation, but the Royals still go out and they trade for Hunter Harvey from the Nationals. What is it that he is going to bring to the team that the bullpen maybe didn't have before?
He's going to bring the two chief things that the bullpen has not had all season long, and that is a guy who can throw 100 miles an hour and also throw 100 miles an hour for a strike. And, as much velocity as Carlos Hernandez has, the command is not always as sharp as he'd like it to be or the Royals would like it to be. In Hunter Harvey, you're getting a guy with a 50-12 strikeout to walk ratio who can pump in 100 miles an hour and also has a pretty nasty splitter. He's got high leverage experience. You're getting a guy that you can count on in those situations. Right now the Royals bullpen, JJ Piccolo has said it, it's a matchup bullpen, not a power bullpen. Hunter Harvey adds a little bit of power. It helps the Royals get a swing and miss when they need to get a swing and miss. It helps the Royals avoid putting the potential tying run on base. Right now the Royals bullpen has the second lowest strikeout rate in all of baseball. Only the Rockies bullpen has a lower strikeout rate. And the walk rate is a little bit higher than you'd like it for where the strikeout rate is. Hunter Harvey's going to help both of those numbers, and I think lengthen out the bullpen and take a little pressure off guys that were pitching, routinely in high leverage. And John Schreiber, who can maybe now ease back into a role a little bit more, or an Angel Serpa, who's also in his first full big league season. I think that it becomes a matchup bullpen with a power piece that could be pretty important.
We're talking with Jake Eisenberg, voice of the Kansas City Royals. You hear him right here on these very airwaves when the Royals are playing. Let's look at the lineup here, Jake. We just mentioned a trade for a bullpen piece. Maybe a trade or two that some fans were looking for was for the outfield. Inconsistent production, especially from the corners, from Melendez and Renfroe specifically. Both guys started rough. They've been better. What did the Royals see or hear with those two guys that told them that staying the course was going to be better than jumping into the trade market and making a move?
Well, I think with Hunter Renfroe, it's like, okay, let's look at his entire career. And he has traditionally been a slow starter, but the numbers have been pretty stable over the course of his career, where he's going to give you 20 home runs and however many RBIs those home runs lead to, and he's going to hit about 250, and he's going to have a clutch hit here or there, and they're starting to see more consistent production from Hunter Renfroe, who's also shown an ability in the right field corner to make a difference with his arm. With MJ Melendez, I think that there's more hope in the potential than there is proof in, in past performance. I mean, we saw what he did in the second half of last season. Now that's one second half of a major league season. But I think that we saw in the second half of last year kind of what we started to see right around mid-June this year, where he had that, 12-pitch grand slam against the Dodgers. That seemed like the shift where he finally, found the thing that clicked in his approach or his mechanics that helped him unlock the way he started the season. Because, lest we forget, he was one of the hottest hitters in baseball through the first 2-3 weeks of the season, was he not? He had, 8 RBIs against the White Sox that third week of the year, and then it kind of fell off a cliff from there. So we finally started to see MJ become the offensive player that I think everyone thinks he's capable of being, and the timing with his left ankle sprain is really unfortunate. As far as, going outside to bring another outfielder, that's a hard question to answer for JJ and his staff. I'll throw my 2 cents in there, personal opinion. My question would be, who do you want to get, and how much are you willing to give up for that outfielder, and does that outfielder make that sizable of an impact for you to part with whatever you're going to have to part with? That's opportunity cost. And I think the way that Renfroe's been playing and the way that Melendez has been playing, and we'll see what happens in the wake of the injury, but, that opportunity cost, you're not really willing to give up what you would have to give up to go get a significant upgrade at either of those 2 spots.
Probably not used to you, might be to Royals fans. Drew Waters called up again to replace MJ Melendez for the remainder of his IL stint. It's pretty sad on the infield, though, Jake. We know Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be at shortstop. Michael Massey working his way back into the field, but definitely in the lineup. And then Maikel Garcia and Vinny Pasquantino. Between Garcia, Massey, and Pasquantino, who do you think has the biggest second half?
I think it has to be Vinny, right? If this Royals team is going to go the places that everybody wants it to go, it's going to be Vinny Pasquantino in the middle of the lineup. He has been an RBI machine. He has been a situational hitting force. And while the average might not be where people expected, he has an ability to drive in runs in a way that has changed, frankly, Austin, changed the way that I think about RBIs as a statistic. I used to view RBIs as somewhat circumstantial, of, a guy getting a base hit with a fast guy on second base, or, sacrifice flies being somewhat a product of whatever is happening on the field. With Vinny Pasquantino, he has changed my mind into understanding that when there is an RBI chance, there is a different approach, there is a different level of intent, there is a different ability to drive in runs. That with him, it's not just circumstantial with who's on base. It's he's going up to the plate. He knows that he's a chance to drive in a run, and he's going to drive in a run. I think it shows a little bit in his splits. Bases empty, runners on base, runners in scoring position. His runners on base and runners in scoring position numbers far outweigh his numbers with the bases empty. I mean, he's leading the big leagues in sacrifice flies. He has more RBIs with a runner in scoring position and less than 2 outs than any player in baseball. And that, to me, proves it right there. If the Royals are going to not just compete, but contend for the division, contend for a playoff spot, it's because Vinny Pasquantino is continuing to drive in runs from the middle of the Royals lineup the way that we've seen the last few weeks.
Jake, you said the magic words, where the Royals want to go. That's the playoffs. If they're able to make a push here in the second half of the season, they do something basically unprecedented, right? Go from 56 and 106 to the playoffs, even in the expanded playoffs era, hasn't been done. Royals are going to focus on themselves. Who are some of the teams that Royals fans should be scoreboard watching and rooting against here down the stretch?
Well, I think it starts with the American League Central, obviously, doesn't it? We're checking out what the Guardians are doing. We're checking out what the Twins are doing. Tigers have faded, but I don't think they're, down for the count just yet. Might want to keep an eye on them, too. It's kind of a 3-4-ish team race in the division, I think. You can loop all those teams in with the wild card race. And then as far as the wild card concerned, you're looking at the Red Sox. You're looking at the Astros, who are sneaking up on people in a way that they shouldn't be sneaking up on people at this point. You're watching the Mariners, who have held on to first place in the American League West for a while, but are kind of slowly fading. But as they fade, they become part of that wild card picture as well. And the Royals did lose the series to the Mariners up in Seattle this year. I think I'm blanking on how the season series went. It might have been a split. Either way, that's another team you're focusing on. So in the wild card, Red Sox, Astros, Mariners, depending on how the Astros and Mariners flip. The Rays are kind of lurking around, but they might be sellers, so it's hard to say. Who knows what's going to happen with the Rangers? It depends, I think, on whether or not they sell and whether or not their offense wakes up and becomes the offense that it was last year. Point being, there are 3 wild card spots. This playoff race is far, far, far from over. And I think if we had talked at the beginning of the season, and we did, I probably would have said an 87-win team claims the AL Central Division. That's probably no longer the case the way that Cleveland is played. An 87-win team still probably gets you a wild card spot. Probably the Royals right now are on pace to win 87 games, which would be a 31-win improvement from last year. That is an improvement that has only happened 5 times since the Royals began as a franchise in 1969. And so that would be a pretty unprecedented jump. I'm not moving the goalposts. I want to make that clear. I'm not moving the goalposts. I am saying that it's important to take stock of where this team was and where this team is going and end up. And even if this team finishes shy of the playoffs, finishing with 80-plus wins after last season is a tremendous, tremendous step forward. And I do hope that as much as we might feel the sting of a Royals team that falls just short, I hope still that there is an appreciation for how far this Royals team has come and what that would mean for 2025 and 2026, specifically the off seasons and how much this front office is going to push. And JJ Picollo has said they see a window opening. This is 2013, 2014-esque. I do think that the Royals are in a really good position to make the playoffs. Yes, it would be disappointing if they didn't, but it can be both disappointing that they didn't make the playoffs and also extraordinarily encouraging the way in which they came close to a playoff spot. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. 97 games down, 65 to go. You'll hear them right here on 93.7 The Ticket. It had been a few days since we heard you, Jake. People were wondering. Thanks for taking some time today, getting warmed back up for the second half. Have a great second half. We'll look forward to seeing how it goes.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.